Hello, everyone,
Hi.
and welcome. We are having problems. Let me get Aaron on here. Hey, Aaron.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you just
Great.
fine. We are having
Excellent.
problems connecting with Facebook. So I am going to share out our YouTube link real quick, and I'm not sure what the problem is. So you're going to have to give me just a second because I can't
Oh, no
type and talk
worries.
at the same time. Problems with StreamYard connecting. We haven't had this problem in some time. So join us on YouTube. The comics and the retailer. Okay, so posting that to Silverline Comics. I should probably post that to this link here. Try us here. Sorry about that.
Good thing I shared the YouTube link then.
Well, yes, it is a very good thing you shared the YouTube link. Yeah, so I'm going to, if anyone is trying to find it on Facebook, I've gone to Facebook, and under that post where it says we're supposed to be live, I said, try us here and send them to YouTube. So if anybody comes looking for us on Facebook, they'll see that and then hopefully see the YouTube link and come on over. We are also on Twitch if anybody is watching us there. So we usually have the three options, but I don't know why. It's I'm just getting an error message that we're having problems connecting to YouTube, and I don't know. I'm sorry, not YouTube, to Facebook, and I don't know what those issues are. But anyway, let us get started. So welcome everyone to Silver Sunday here on this May 8th on Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there. If your mother is still with you and you haven't spoken to her, shame on you. Call her now and tell her how much she means to you. And if you are a mother, make sure those in your realm appreciate you. If they don't, smack them and make them appreciate you. So yeah. So you hopefully you saw it on the startup screen, but we have to go through this. We don't have to. It's our joy to go through this every week. Shout out to our sponsor, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you like comics and you like comic book conventions, make your plans to go to Daytona Beach Comic Con. Lots of comics for comic fans there, and there will be lots of comic makers, so you can bring comics to get signed, or even better yet, bring some money and buy comics from them and get them signed on the spot. In September of this year, Daytona Beach Comic Con. Shout out to, as always, Coliseum of Comics. If you are in the Orlando area and you need to find your Silverline Comics, make your way to Coliseum of Comics on East Colonial Drive and in Claremont, I believe. In Claremont, right? Also, Yep.
Those are my two stores. Yep.
And tell them that you want to buy Silverline Comics, add that Silverline sent you there, and buy Silverline Comics. Coliseum of Comics, East Colonial Drive in Orlando and in Claremont. And big shout outs to our printer Kablam for awesome printing work. They are going through a very rough week this week. So we are asking everybody to be a little patient with them. I think that we're supposed to get our books on Tuesday for Sirens and for Wolf Hunter. So if you backed that campaign, I will keep you posted, but I am anticipating a message from them that will say that I should get books on Tuesday. That's my fingers are crossed, but I will let you know on the Kickstarter page. And lastly, shout out to OCD, Orlando Collector Deviants, fan family doing fan service in the Orlando and Florida area. So that was the update for the Sirens and Wolf Hunter. But as you guys know, or you should know, Roberta, I'm going to share this. If this is
go ahead.
StreamYard.
Can take the art off.
Yeah. So we currently have this Kickstarter going.
Look at that.
Yep. We have 53 backers at $24.60 with 14. That's two weeks left to go. So I know some of you are like, well, you haven't delivered on the last one yet. I fully get you. I understand. I know exactly what you mean. Hopefully you will recall that we are 16 for 16 of the previous ones. And the Sirens and the Wolf Hunter campaign, those books are not due until the end of May. So we still have buffer time, even though we do generally try to get those out before our next one starts. Didn't quite happen this time, so we're asking you to give us a little grace on that one. But still lots of original art left. I went and looked through some of the original art today. And if you're an original art fan, there is still some original art left. Lots of pages from... I don't know how many commissions are left. I think most of the commissions are gone. I can check on those, and I need to update this. To let you know what's gone. Several of the original pieces of art are gone, but there's a lot there. If you are an original art fan, this is a great way to get some original art from a comic that you are also going to own. So you will get that, and even there's even some original pages to Cray here, even though that was originally published in the 90s. So, and then the entirety of the Obsoletes #1, Aaron Humphreys has made that available. All of the pencils are available to that one as well. So, fantastic way to get original artwork. Lots of goodies. And of course, if you missed a Silverline issue, you can always pick it up here as well. So jump on over there. Let's see here. Jump on over there. Back it if you can. If you can't back it, we certainly understand, but share it around. So today we have a special guest with us, Mr. Aaron Holland.
How's it going?
We are doing well. And I'll put your art back up on just a second.
Oh, whatever.
Well, I like we wanted so people can see you, but for most of our stream, what we like to do is have artwork. We like to watch Roberta color, and then whoever else might be here do their artwork while we talk. But folks, we want folks to see your face so they know you're a real person. Aaron is the owner of Coliseum of Comics in Orlando and on East Colonial Street and in Claremont.
Yep.
And so the first thing we'll do, Aaron, I know I kind of set you up a little bit. I said we want to talk to you about independent comics and the retailer, because you guys, as a retailer, you have a lot of hard decisions to make. You just are you exhausted from yesterday? I'm going to assume.
A little bit. I'm just exhausted from the last 2 years, pretty much.
Okay.
But no, yesterday was a really good day for us.
Good. Well, it's one of my Coliseum of Comics is usually my home on Free Comic Book Day, but we had a graduation yesterday that we attended, and I'm pretty sure she won't be listening to this stream, so I can say I would rather have been at Free Comic Book Day. But she's a sweetheart, so we were happy to be there and support her in her graduation.
Congrats to her.
Yeah, she graduated from Stetson. So
oh wow,
yeah. So
great. Well, congratulations.
Yeah. So she's my son's girlfriend. So she's done a great job. So we were proud to be there. But anyway, so one of the first things, obviously, and I saw a little bit of this going around it. People talk about Free Comic Book Day. Mm-hmm. And they get excited because, Free Comic Book Day. So I think a lot of people don't realize that, okay, yeah, it's Free Comic Book Day, but you, as the retailer, they weren't free to you.
No.
You
They're deeply discounted. There's a two-part kind of disconnect with some people. Like anyone who's been to Free Comic Book Day before knows what it's all about. You come in, the publishers have made, special edition copies of either something that exists or more commonly something new that's leading into like an event or some other new story, new character, new series launching, things like that. Some people who are not familiar that think, oh, I can come in and I get free comic books like off the stands. And, every couple of years there's someone who like all of a sudden they come up to the counter with a big stack of books from the regular wall. And it's like, yeah, that's not how this works. I'm very sorry.
And they're so confused.
Well, it may not surprise you, but as a creator being there as well, I've experienced that same thing. They walk by and they just start picking them up, and I'm like,
yeah,
those unfortunately, those aren't the free ones, right? They're like, oh, I thought it was free comic book day. It is free comic book day, but those are the free ones over there. You got to go over there.
Yeah, fortunately, most publishers now, it's on average it's probably 30 cents a copy, but still, when you're talking about, we bring in 5,000 to 6,000 books per store.
Right.
It does add up, but it's also a very big day for for outreach to people who may not always be, haven't tried comics or have been out of it, and it's a jumping on point to just keep people interested.
Yeah. Now I've seen the occasional retailer say that Free Comic Book Day ends up being, even though they give away a lot of free comics, it ends up being the best day of their year. Is that the case for you?
Yeah, very much so. It's always in our top three between like this and Black Friday, and I'd say probably the Wednesday before Christmas is always one of the biggest days of the year with new comics and last minute shopping, and
the Wednesday before Christmas. Now, I never would have guessed that to be the case.
Yeah, a lot of subscribers come in, want to clean out their box, make sure they're caught up before they go away for holidays, or because it's like one of the last big weeks. Usually the publishers tend to, like, the week between Christmas and New Year's is pretty light. So there can be a little bit of front loading and a couple extra books coming out that last week. So, people looking for last minute gifts for whoever, or, their loved ones or themselves or anything like that. So that always ends up being an oddly large sales day.
Wow. Yeah. That kind of surprises me. I would not have guessed that to be the case. Now, Black Friday doesn't surprise me, but the Wednesday before Christmas is a bit of a surprise. So Aaron, how long have you been doing this? Actually, before we get there, let me back up just a little bit. What got you into comics?
So I didn't really read a lot of comics as a kid. Like, I had a couple growing up. I remember having the G.I. Joe Treasury edition, like the oversized one.
Big one, yeah.
I remember, like, it was in such beat up condition by the time I was old enough to realize, like, because I took silly putty and I made, like, pushed it on there,
right,
and stretched the faces and all that kind of stuff. And I remember having some kind of like Legion of Superheroes special or something like that, but never a lot until I got in my 20s. One of the guys I worked with at Universal was like, "Oh, you got to read this." We were just talking, whatever. You got to read the story, Infinity Gauntlet, and that and Kingdom Come are what got me into comics, because you kind of recommended those. Yeah. Like, to this day, Galactus, Silver Surfer, and Thanos are three of my favorite characters of all time. So when, like, Thanos shows up in the end credits of the first Avengers movie, I'm like, even my wife realized, like, something is happening here. Like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So that was, for me, that was pretty exciting. Obviously, they changed him for the movies, but, like, I think what grabbed me and fascinated me at the time was just how he wasn't just a villain out to rob and murder. Like, he had, he had a goal he was trying to achieve, and the fact that he kind of basically lets himself get defeated and then just goes off and farms for a while, like, I'm going to figure life out now, like, was very compelling and interesting to me.
Yeah.
And then, like, the Alex Ross art in Kingdom Come, and the fact the Elseworlds kind of stuff, like, it wasn't what I expected out of a superhero story, especially like with the Batman, Superman stuff and all that. And so it was just like, wow. So I had a really positive introduction to comic books, and kind of just been around them ever since.
You kind of had an awakening, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You get that right book for the right person, and all of a sudden it's like, the whole world opens up.
Yeah. So of course, that I teach it, and so many of them, they expect it to all be like, Adam West Batman, and you're like, well, there's that, but and I don't have a problem with that, but it's so much more,
Oh yeah, the last like 10 years, especially, like, name a genre, name a style of art, style of writing. Like, it's insane how many options are out there. There's something out there for everyone. And it will like branch you off into like either following an artist or a writer, or like, I like that kind of story or whatever. And you just like, once you're in it, you kind of bounce around, and you'll find other stuff that you enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get to options in the retailer here in just a minute. So how did you go from there to being a retailer? How did you make the jump from being a comic book reader to saying, hey, I got some stores I'm going to own?
That was not planned, actually. So I had worked at Universal for a long time, and I had kind of languished there, and I was looking for a career to follow. And like, I just was like, I need to get out of here. And eventually I saw that Coliseum was advertising for a games manager at the Fashion Square Mall location.
Mm-hmm.
Interviewed and got that. The manager who was there at the time ended up leaving in October to move out of town. And so I ended up getting the promotion to store manager.
Wow.
And over the next couple of years, I learned a ton about, I got a business degree from UCF, and I wasn't really doing anything with it. But running the store, having that, on the ground, just, managerial experience of it, because the owner at the time, previous to me for this store, he was also an affiliate of Coliseum, but, lawyer by day, geek by night. And so it was like, the manager is just handled pretty much everything except anything to do with, governmental and whatever else, sales tax, filings, things like that. So I was kind of, doing it all, and I had to figure out a lot, put procedures in place, because it was a little loose at the time. But I had a good crew, and we evolved, and then we moved to where the arcade had been. And then about a year later, the owner at the time was like, I'm busy with my family, busy with my job. I don't have time anymore. Do you want to buy it? Like, oh, okay. I didn't even really thought of that as an option. Like, what? So got some money together, took out some loans, and, bought the store. And then 3 days later was the big market crash of 2008 that led into the Great Recession.
Oh,
bad timing.
Yeah. So like at first it was like, well, what's going to happen? We're okay for now. And the year started okay the next year. And then it was just, what's going on? Where are the people? And so, the next few years were pretty rough, but we were able to keep things going. And, we've always had our ups and downs, but, things are going well right now. So I can't complain.
Yeah. Well, if you're like me, if you complain, no one's still going to listen to you anyway.
Well, yeah.
So you're talking 2008. So you're talking what, 5, 10?
So as an owner, I'm coming up on 14 years in September.
Wow.
And January of 2005 is when I joined the company.
Okay. So almost 20 years.
Getting closer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is 22, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I've lost track too. I have to think about it.
Yeah. So now, do you do the orders for your stores?
Not anymore. Like, I have a hand in it. So I've got a manager at each store, and they have a lot of leeway to, like, here's how I want the store run. And there's a little bit of hand holding, but like, for example, we have a new manager as of October at the Claremont store, bit by bit by bit, like, because the ordering is, gosh, I don't even know if you look at I assume you look at the previews catalog every month.
Yes. Yeah.
Usually, so our order, and this is just for Diamond, our order, I mean, there's 2,000 to 3,000 line items to go through every month.
Right.
Plus now we've got Penguin Random House that we deal with in Lunar. Those aren't as intense because it's more just Marvel and DC on those other ones. But through Diamond, you've got all the, everything from, like, T-shirts and statues and pop figures and all the merch and things that you have to consider, and, like, what do we want to bring in? But I do have a hand in that. And then there's a weekly, a lot of people don't, a little inside baseball you probably know about, but the final order cutoff that DC does, where you can, and all the companies, where you can tweak your orders about 3 or 4 weeks away from release a little bit on a lot of most companies' books nowadays, which is a lot better than it used to be. So they pull all the numbers, they check their data, they put in all the stuff, and they send it to me. They copy me on it, and I just review it. And if I see a problem, I alert the person who's doing the final ordering, like, hey, tweak this over here, and give them the guidance of, like, hey, here's why I did this thing. And so bit by bit by bit, there's like, when someone's like a new manager, it's like there's a lot of, hand holding and watching through that, because it takes months to get used to like the trends. Because if a book is coming out every month, it's like, okay, well, is it going up or down? And you're watching these trends and just getting a feel for it. It's a long haul process, but they're doing, new guy's doing great actually. Like I don't have a lot of tweaks I make on his orders anymore. So
that's good. That's good. So do you track? Do you track the sales of individual titles?
Oh yeah, very much so.
Now you already mentioned, and that's one of the things I was going to get to, like 2,000 line items, and that's just Diamond, right?
Yeah.
So for a lot of people who may not realize it, is that the DC is no longer DC Comics are no longer even offered through Diamond distributors. So you have to get your DC Comics through Penguin.
Marvel is with Penguin Random House, and you can still get them through through Diamond, and DC is exclusively through Lunar. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Lunar. Yeah. So you've gone from, in the span of what, 2 years, having to order for everything from one source to 3 different sources. You don't have an option. I mean, if you book those books, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Go ahead. What were you going to ask?
No, I was just going to say, so you order your Marvel books from one source, you order your DC books from another source, and then everybody else from the other source, as well as your toys and T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. Now, do you still get Marvel and DC merchandise through Diamond, or?
Yes, because they license out to so many different companies.
Right.
It's kind of crazy, actually. In fact, like over the years, gosh, I'd have to do a count. We do regular ordering from probably 24 different vendors on a monthly basis. Just, we've got a direct account with Funko, with Lego, with Entertainment Earth, where we get some of the exclusives, or I mean, there's company, poster companies, things like that. Like, because Diamond doesn't carry everything, and even the stuff they carry, they sell down on and sell out of, and they don't restock unless there's enough back orders for demand. So over the years, we've just opened accounts with tons of, directly with manufacturers, publishers, all kinds of, companies, and we get a lot of stuff direct now too.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that would seem, for me looking, from the outside looking in, that would seem to be a royal pain in the.
Oh yeah. And especially the last 2 years, because a lot of these accounts, I'd say probably 75% of the accounts we've opened over the last 2 years, just because of supply chain issues related to COVID, manufacturing issues. It just, the only chance and opportunity we have to get some of these products is if we go direct, and even then, it's like, we've had a direct account with BCW. They do
the supplies,
exactly, a lot of bags and boards, boxes, things like that. But so it's like right now, it's like, well, we can get current bags right now, can't get current boards. In a month or two, we'll probably be getting boards in, and then we won't be able to get current bags in.
No bags.
There's a manufacturing lag, and they're still catching up with demand, and the demand's not being sated, because as soon as anything comes in, it just flies out the door.
Yeah. So you get your independent comics, because obviously that's kind of why we're here. You get your independent comics primarily through Diamond, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the occasional guy who yells at you and says, "Hey, we got a retail tier at on our Kickstarter."
Yep.
So what would you say from a retailer's perspective? What is your biggest challenge in finding or choosing independent comics?
That's gotten a little easier over the years, actually, because some of the companies, not all of them, and not even every company, every issue, but like say Image or Boom in particular, they launch a new #1 issue, right? Most of the time, they guarantee it for us. They make it the #1 issue returnable for retailers.
Oh.
Dark Horse does it a little bit, but some companies have a threshold. It's like, order 10 copies and we make it returnable for you. So they make it easier for us. And actually, we have seen increased sales in independent comics because we're less, whatever random book 5 years ago or 10 years ago that came out. It's like, I don't know if the right people see it, know. But now it's like, okay, well, order this many, and we do a thing. I don't know if every store does it or not around the country or whatever, but like we do a thing where we cross pull it. We call it. We put a green bookmark in a book, and it sticks out of the top, and it says, if I forget, like it basically it's a suggestion. Like it says extra book at the top. Basically, it's like, hey, we think it says that we think you'd like this because of another book you read. Yeah. So we throw those in there, and it's no one's obligated to buy it, but we cross pull, and so the fact that these are guaranteed to give us a chance to expose more customers to these books and give them a chance to say yay or nay. And overall, there's been a net positive of increasing subscriptions on independent books.
Wow.
That's great.
That's fantastic. Obviously, as independent comic book makers, we love to hear that. Do you find that did the whole distribution, how can I say this, kerfluffle, did that help you? Did that push you to independent comics in any kind of way, or did it help you kind of see more of them, or did it any other than messing up the way you make your orders?
Not necessarily. No, I mean, it's always like, because I know I see it in some of the retailer forums where they talk about like, oh, this company is doing XYZ, I don't want to support them. It's like, well, as a business owner, it does come down to what's going to sell and what your customers want. Like,
right. Yeah.
That's always how I've looked at it, and how we tend to run the shop. I mean, there's only so much you can do, and like, you can't. That's something too, is you can't make everyone happy. Like, we have plenty of misses too. It's like even some of the returnable books lately, we had a couple where, we ordered, okay, it looks about like this. It should sell like this. You compare, like, try and compare apples to apples. Well, this book looks like book A seems a lot like book C, so it should sell similar to it,
Right.
Most of the, half and half. Like sometimes it does really well and sells. That's like, oh, I wish I'd gotten more. And then other times it's like, whoa, good thing this is returnable. We really overrated this book.
Now, so do you find that that you return very many?
Mixed bag. Some months, this last month, actually, there wasn't too many. But some months it's like, wow, here's here's 50, 60, 100 books for cover stripping and reporting basically to the distributor. Yeah. So
you're actually old time tearing off the logos and sending them back?
Well, they stopped doing it's what they call affidavit returns. Basically, you cover strip it with Lunar. You take a picture you spread out the books, take a picture, and upload it showing that you did cover strip them. With Diamond, it's on honor. Basically, you're supposed to just throw them away. Is what they want to do. Which a lot of people don't know that about the book industry in general. But like big box bookstores. Mm-hmm. I saw a post on Reddit a couple weeks ago when there was cover strip books filled like a full dumpster behind Barnes and Noble or something. People are like, oh my gosh, what has happened? It's like they've been doing that for 20, 30 years now. Yeah. Well,
I worked at a bookstore when I was in college. So I mean, we did that kind of thing. Yeah. And it wasn't unusual that I don't know if I would assume it still happens, but we had because I was in a college town, there were a certain number of people who kind of knew, today's the day they're doing that. And you could go out back by the dumpster after work and you could see people running through, picking out, look, here's the books. Here's the latest John Grisham book. It's, brand new, just rip the cover off and that's it. So,
I've always found that kind of wild. Like, the amount of paper that's involved in that. Like with comics at first, I remember the first time I like cover stripped a book, I was like, this feels so wrong.
It does.
This feels so wrong. Usually it's not in mass. It's just a handful of books, 5 or 10 copies here or there. But I've had staff over the years who have they're like, don't give them to me. I refuse to do it. They're like, this is sacrilege. You don't rip a comic book.
It does hurt.
I understand.
It hurts to do it.
Stephen Brown said, hey, what did I miss? Hey, Stephen, we are talking to Aaron Holland from Coliseum of Comics about retailers and independent comics. So when you run through your your managers, when they run through these 2,000 items in Diamond Comics, a lot of would you say 500 to 600 of those are independent comics? Because Because at one point in
Oh,
time, I
geez.
remember there used to be anywhere from 750 to 1,000 comic books in Diamond, and that included Marvel and DC.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you remove 300 of them to be Marvel and DC books, it ended up to be 500 books that weren't Marvel DC.
So I'm right now I'm pulling up an inventory from this week just to see how many of the lines are independent books and this is what we're stocking as a chain. This isn't even everything that's on Diamond.
Okay.
So yeah, bear with me one second, but
sure. Yeah.
it's a lot of books. It's not an insignificant amount of stuff. Let's see. The indies start at line 237 and go through line 436. So about 200 independent titles, or some of these are multiple covers, but kind of just to give you, an idea of what we're doing. But there's a lot of stuff
200
we just
books.
can't stock. There's just it doesn't make sense sometimes to carry some of them, and it's a lot of it's based on if it launches well as a number one. There's usually number ones always tend to do the best, and then there's a bleed off, and then but there's a leveling at some point. And here's how many copies we know on a weekly basis, and we do a weekly hand count inventory just to confirm what's there and what our system says, and base our ordering on a combination of that against sales and where's the trend going. Has it stabilized? Is it a hot story arc and sales are up? So there's a little bit of a science to it, but there's a lot of gut to it also as far as like ordering independent comics.
Well, so what do you look for when you got all of these independent comics? What are you looking for? What are some things that if you see, you're like, I got to have that? Or what are and the opposite of that is, what are some things that you see and you go, yeah, there's no way I'm going to order that one. And I'm not trying to be title specific.
No. We don't
want to call anybody out.
Flipping through the catalog, I'm going to use a couple specific examples just off the top of my head, but the first one's kind of a generalization. It's I'm flipping through the catalog. Does that cover grab me? What's the title? What is it? Just what's it sound like? What's it look like? Who's writing it? Who's the artist? What company is it coming from? Because some companies are just they make slightly better choices than others.
Right.
Then it's like, okay, well, let's look at, what's the description now? Like, what does it say? Does that sound interesting? Does that sound derivative of something else? Is it, XYZ? Like it is, sometimes it's a feel, sometimes it's like, you see, gosh, I'm not going to point anyone out on this. I don't want to call it any companies, but
we try not to.
See, we're doing a sequel to this series that was kind of a mediocre seller. Oh, now we're doing a third thing for it. Oh, now we're doing a fourth series for it. Now we're doing a fifth series. And every time for those kind of books, it's like the sales just keep doing this and this and this. And it's like, why are we ordering this? At a certain point. One of the things that's always tough to order too, or we sometimes will avoid them. Like Image Comics will do a lot of, not a lot, but every once in a while you see this oddball one shot. It's like, it's not tied to anything. It's just its own thing. It's like, it's a one shot or a 2 issues. That 2-issue series are the worst. Yeah, absolute worst. Because every now and then, number 1 still isn't out, and we've had to order, our numbers for number 2. It's like we have no idea how this is going to sell. Yeah. One shots are a little tough, and the very small miniseries are a little tough too, depending on where they're coming from.
So when you say very small, you mean like 2 issues?
Yeah, like a 2 or 3 issue miniseries is tough. It's a lot. You look at and again, I'll point at Image. They've got kind of it down to a science where it's like we're doing this. Everything's pretty much either a 5-issue miniseries or it's an ongoing that's broken into 5-issue story arc chunks. Yeah, and that's how they subdivide their trade paperbacks, right? And most of their trade paperback volumes are $10 for the first volume, and then they go to normal pricing for the others. So, and they're doing, the issue 1 reprints in the Image first, and they're all $1. And they do a good job of keeping people flowing to their books and giving them reasons to either stick around or give it a try. Just as an example of one company, you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what we mostly try to do with Silverline is we try to say, all right, look, let's do 4 issues at 22 pages. That gives us, 88 pages, which makes not a thick trade, but it makes a nice little trade that we can then package and offer as a trade.
4 issues gives for us 4 issues gives us the idea that, okay, if it's not doing real well, then we have less obligation to try to, because we don't want to be those that, oh, we did 2 issues and it just sucks, and so now we're not going to finish it.
Mhm.
We want to be able to still finish them.
Yeah,
but
I was saying that's something that's really common for like very small indie publishers. It's like, well, we put up 2 and people didn't pick it up, so we're done. Whatever. It's like, well,
right, yeah. And how do you explain that to your customers that come in and get it?
Yeah, I mean that's happened for a few
Yeah.
a few books here and there. It's not too common, fortunately, but when it does, it's like it's funny. For months, people will be asked. They'll come in every couple times they come in. Oh, any word on this book yet? No, sorry. It's I don't know what to tell you.
Now, so you may not remember this. I know Roberta probably remembers this. In the 90s, late shipping was a terrible problem, particularly for Image Comics when they first got started. They just could not meet their shipping schedule and their promises. Is late shipping still an issue?
On occasion,
Yeah.
if something's going to be later, there's a screw up with a barcode, or like, hey, we're holding this back. Diamond sends an email right away as soon as the publisher gives them a heads up about something. Usually, it's like my impression of it is that it's usually a manufacturing issue or like a printer issue that holds stuff up, but it's not often. It's really not that often these days. It was a little more common in the last couple of years, like especially once things the industry got restarted after shutdown and all that kind of stuff. Like so by the fall when things got rolling really well, but it's pretty rare. Like it doesn't happen all that often.
Well, that's good to hear, because I know that was one of the things that we had to battle. And as an independent comic maker, whenever I hear an independent company, let's just say Image, right? Because they're one of the big ones. When I hear Image is shipping late, I'm like, no, please, no, don't ship late, because that kind of affects it's the sort of the trickle down thing. It's like, no, because you guys, retailers look at Image as like one of the premier independent companies, and so when they're having problems and it kind of like, sour grapes kind of trickle down, it's like, no, right?
Well, it definitely affects sales though too. On a week where maybe it's a light week, there's not a lot of stuff. Some subscribers will take the week off and I'll pick up my stuff next week. When they see the list, it's not too much. Where like a couple weeks ago, there was 3 big books that came out all at once. I know Berserker hit and 2 others. Names are escaping me because I have the memory of a gnat these days. But so like three fairly big books hit, and we had huge Wednesdays just because everyone wanted to get a hold of those books.
Yeah, those are nice. Ryan says, hello everyone, how are you? Hey Ryan, good to see you here.
Doing well, thanks.
Here's an interesting take. I think Ryan is being funny here. He says retailers view indie comics as competitors, and that's why indie writers and artists should take over the business.
Definitely don't agree with that one.
so let me add something else to it. So one of the things that's kind of become different over the past decade is certainly crowdfunding. And I'm going to first give you and I have a feeling I kind of know where you're coming from, just because you and I have talked some, in generals about this, is that, there are some indie makers that are like, well, this is the way to cut the retailer out. For me, it's like, well, that's, and of course, I got my career started in the late 80s, and retailers were incredibly good to me as a freelancer when I got started. So I love comic retailers, right? I have that spot because they were so good to me. They supported me. They bought my books from this point in time, there were, over a dozen distributors, Capitals. Well, I shouldn't say this. I loved Capital City. They were one of them. Right. And so I look at it as an alternate to Diamond, which is our only option now. I look at not as a way to cut retailers out, but as an alternate to Diamond, because I reach out to you all the time and say, hey, got another one. Here's some comics, and so what are your thoughts on that?
Mixed bag. So I'm a huge, like, my favorite hobby is board games. I love board games, and board games are massive on Kickstarter and crowdfunding. Game Found, Indiegogo,
Sure.
to some
Yeah.
extent. And so it seems like more and more and more, a lot of games are going through Kickstarter. Even some like small and medium-sized companies who have a track record of going through distribution are doing crowdfunding on some of their games now. And so, there's like, well, are they cutting out the retailer? But a lot of them actually do a retailer pledge, and you can get the game through there. And a lot of times their Kickstarter, edition will be, it'll have upgraded bits and extra stuff and that aren't going to be the same in distribution. So as a retailer, you have an access to that because, if they're only selling it to the Kickstarter backers, well, a year later when it delivers, how are you selling it to other people who are interested in getting it? So that is one way of doing it. Some, if they do well enough, they'll get picked up by distributors.
Right.
So we found that we've actually had pretty good luck selling Kickstarter games.
Wow,
that's
good.
As far as like comics and independents go, it's a very mixed bag. It's something I've seen in the local scene too. Like with Silverline, it's like, I know you're apologizing at the start of the show of like, oh, well, we started a Kickstarter, but this hasn't delivered. My take is like, so what? You guys have delivered on every single one. You've never let anybody down. You come into the store and tabled with us. Like, I just saw you had another one pop the other day. Yeah, I need to back it, but it's like, I'm just gonna go back that. I know it's not even a thought. I want to support the local creators when I can. But there's one, and I'm not going to name it obviously, but they did the Kickstarter 2 years ago for a graphic novel, and they showed off a lot of art, talked about the story. It's 2 years later, and I just got the shipping notification.
Wow.
They went dark for almost a year with no updates.
I'd almost forget I ordered it.
Yeah, exactly. And I ordered it for the stores, and it's like, well, I probably, if you guys do another thing, I'm probably not going to back it. Like,
2 years is a long time to wait.
Yeah, and so things like Diamond is looking for consistency. Can you get your books out consistently? And that is the number one biggest problem I see from some other local creators and independents throughout the world is like, can you get it? It's like, okay, here's issue 1, and then a year and a half later, here's issue 2. It's like, well, as far as a retailer goes, okay, but like for the customers, like they were asking every month for 6 to 9 months before they gave up, and they're going to see it and go like, well, when am I going to get the next one after this one? And they're not going to care.
They're going to move on.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff that there's a lot of content, as you already noted, that 2,000 line items, right? There's a lot of stuff to vie for their attention.
Oh yeah, and there's space issues too. Like my Orlando store fortunately is pretty big, and we can fit a lot of stuff in there. But my Claremont store is 1,500 square feet, and there's not a lot of room in there. I don't know if have you been in that store?
I have. Yeah, I've signed in there a couple of times, and
it's pretty packed. There's not a lot of empty spots in that store.
Yeah, it was tighter. But your manager there was very I'll see his face, but I forget his name.
Brent.
Dark-headed guy.
Yeah,
okay, Brent. That wouldn't have been the first name that came to my mind. But he's been there a while, right?
Oh, you might be thinking of Daniel. He left and moved on to follow a different career path.
Did he really?
October. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, he was always very nice to me.
Yeah.
Took good care of me while I was there. So I haven't been there then since Brent has been there.
Okay.
I was there a couple of times when Daniel was the store manager. But it was certainly tighter.
No, I'm very proud of that store, and there's a Publix about to open next door to us, so we're going to get even busier. But
that'd be nice.
I was hoping to be able to get a bigger space, but there's nothing else larger in that plaza, unfortunately, and we're right there, so it's like, we're not going anywhere. It's we'll deal with it. We'll stack stuff to the ceiling if we have to. We'll make it work.
Who's your neighbor? You can see if you can kick your neighbor out, right? Let's
expand. No, they're actually it's weird. There's a haircut place on each side, and they do really well in that area. In fact, like the Great Clips that's next to us supposedly is like one of the highest grossing in the state, from what they've told me. Wow. So they have no plans of going anywhere.
Wow. Now here's Ryan has another comment here. He says comic book stores should carry indie comics more often, and so I wonder. Aaron, have you seen since in the time that you've been involved in the store, have you seen a shift from in sales, Marvel and DC versus independent comics? Have you seen a shift more towards independent comics in the later years?
In some ways, like when you're looking at floppies, meaning like single issue comics,
Right.
A little bit. There's a ton of variety with indie, and anyone who gets kind of burnt out on the superhero stuff or Marvel and DC, or there's always, I mean, you've been around comics forever too. It's like there's always these ups and downs within each company and even in the industry, and taste change, and sometimes story arcs, things, something becomes crazy popular or something becomes really, people just hated that miniseries or that event or whatever. But like, as far as I got off track. What was the question? Indie. Oh, so floppies. Well, you see a lot of more people who are new to the hobby and like more of the veterans kind of gravitate to indie comics. So they've always sold pretty decent for us. I think they're percentage wise, I think it's been increasing a little bit, but where I see the biggest change in my stores is with the trade paperbacks. I mean, I would say right now, like if you combine the Marvel and DC sales of trades, it's roughly close to what we're doing off the indie shelves.
Really?
Yes. They do very well for us.
Wow. That's exciting for me to hear, Not that I want them to do poorly, but I want
for sure. I want the independents to do well. It's been a growing segment for the last several years. They do very well for us. People should be carrying indie comics. At the very least, I know some people might not consider indie Image. I do. It's sort of a vanity press in a way, but they attract a lot of really top-notch creators overall. Every store should carry those at the very least.
If anybody knew how Image, quote unquote, paid their creators, they would absolutely consider them independent.
Okay. But even outside of that, like several other companies, like Boom does pretty well, but they're a little bit bigger. You get in some like, have you ever heard of TKO Press?
TKO, yes, I have.
Okay, they pretty much just do graphic novels, and then they also release them as like a 5-issue box set as well. But their stuff is done decent. I wish they would put out more stuff, but they've had some decent books.
Now, who was it? Scout did this thing called something like a binge where they released the entire miniseries all at once. Now, the question in my mind was, well, why didn't you just release it as a trade instead of all the issues? Have you seen anything kind of like that? And do you think fans are more interested in independence as a trade rather than in the floppies? Because they can get the thing?
I don't know. Every collector is a little different, like even my collecting, like I have, probably a dozen short boxes of comics, and then you can see it over my shoulder there. 3, you can't see all of them, but there's 2, large and 1 skinny bookshelf, and that's mostly trades and hardcovers and things like that. I collect different things different ways. It just kind of depends how I started collecting it too, to some degree, or if I, like Invincible is my favorite series of all time, so I also collected the hardcovers of those, because there's some nice in the back. There's like convention sketches and scripts and things like that. There's a lot of bonus material. But as far as like other indie stuff, I've seen some companies where it's like they put out a #1 issue, and then it goes straight to trade paperback. It's like, well, that's 2 different customers. So one of them's not completing it, and you might not have had the right, or your numbers maybe weren't as good in the single issue, but some of them have been planned that way. I just saw one the other day. I was doing reviewing an order, and I was looking at #1. Let's see. #1, and then straight to the trade paperback. That'll be coming out in a couple weeks later or something. It's like, why? Like, I don't understand that.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's two different kind of customers who want the trades, and then you can see the boxes behind me, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Most of these, I will confess, most of these are old. But they're 2 different, because my bookshelves are in my living room. So
I mean, just like digital is a different kind of customer too. We found there was kind of a digital panic when that came on the scene, and you put a little bit of a dent in it, but if you look at the numbers year over year, it's pretty much, it got to a certain, I forget what the percentage is, but of the industry, but it got to that percentage is pretty much floated within 1 or 2 of that every year. Like
Yeah.
It's a different customer,
It is. Well, I had a good friend who was in a senior position at DC, and I talked to him a couple of years ago, and he's like, they really didn't see DC didn't really see a big bump when they went digital. They're like, yeah, we don't really see, there was all the, oh no, digital is gonna destroy print, and he's like,
Mhm.
Of course, now that they suspected that they lost a lot to piracy, which that's a completely different issue. But it's
Yeah.
like we don't see that many that the numbers aren't that great for digital as a lot of people were kind of afraid of that would destroy print. So
I think part of that is it is a collector market.
Yeah.
I personally like holding a book. I like smelling the ink and the fresh paper, and I don't know. There's just something special about it. I'm always reminded of like when deaths don't matter in mainline superhero comics anymore.
Right.
But like when Captain America died in Civil War, I was reading that issue Cap 25, and I get to the end, and I'm like, wait, what? And I flip back, flip. Oh, what's going on? I think
Right.
Captain America. What the heck? And you don't get that same kind of when you're scrolling or just flipping through your iPad or whatever you're looking at. It's just not the same. It's just for me. I'm not a fan of the medium, but it is what it is. I think the people who abandon collecting for whatever reason and go to digital, I think it's probably offset by people who start with digital and like get into collecting. I've seen that on the other side too. So
yeah, well, that's one of the things we don't do a whole lot of. We offer digital books during our Kickstarters. Beyond that, we don't offer. Silverline doesn't offer anything digital. We toyed with the ideas of once we get a series finished, maybe offer the first issue for free. Say, hey, look, here it is. Hopefully, if you try it out, maybe then you'll actually go buy the book and then buy the rest of it.
Yeah.
But we haven't quite gotten there to too many of them just yet.
No, that's not a bad idea, actually.
Yeah. If you were to get a room full of independent comic book creators, and you had to offer them a couple of pieces of advice to say, I come to you and say, Aaron, how can I get my book in your store so that it does well, right? And beyond just the fact, hey, come to talk to me, blah, blah, blah. Would you tell them, here's the things you need to do, here's what you need to focus on for your book?
And you're talking about like a very small creator, right?
Yes.
Kind of standalone, like a
right.
Silverline.
Not Boom. Yeah.
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 Gosh, like we talked about a little earlier, just timing. Get your stuff out on a regular basis. People are going to be looking for it. People want if people who bought it are going to want to read it. I mean, I've actually we've had plenty of people who after you've been in the store like. Actually, I had a guy yesterday on Free Comic Book Day asking when you guys were coming back for more signings.
Oh, excellent!
Because he had a couple of books he wanted to get signed from some of the other creators.
I love to hear that.
Good news.
Yeah,
but I don't. Gosh, if I think if I had to publish a book, like what would I do? Like, you got to hit the ground. You got to table at stores, table at conventions. But be on time. It needs to look decent. It needs to look somewhat professional.
Yeah.
I've seen, just so many people who want to get their book in the store, and it's like, hey, as long as it doesn't look, bad, we'll take a look at it. We'll bring it in. Hey, can you come in and promote it?
Right.
And we'll support you as best we can. And, but like one of the things I've always given you guys credit for when you're there is, you guys, especially you, Roland, like you engage people. Hey, you check out this comic? Look what we made. It's like, and that's because most people are not. We don't have a lot of extroverts in our industry. They're not just going to go up. Most of them aren't going to go up and strike up a conversation. Be like, hey, what you got going on here?
Right. Yeah.
So be engaging. Don't just sit there doodling on your thing, because if you're not looking up and aware, they're not going to want to bother you if you look like you're doing something. That's as long as you can start with that, and then the other, obviously, like have a good story, have some decent art, but that's out of some realm of control to some degree sometimes, but
Yeah. There's a great the one of the last times that we were in your store, there was um, a father and a son who came in, and I stopped them, and the son kind of flipping through the books, and the father's slightly behind him, just kind of watching everything go on. And we were talking to him a little bit, and it said something. I said, "So do you like comics?" And he goes, "No." And I'm like, and we look around like, what are you doing in the comic book store then? And his father was standing behind him, and you could see him going like, yeah, right.
I mean, in fairness, we do carry a lot more than just comics.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and I think that's what he was doing. He was headed towards the back to play some games.
Like games, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I got that from him, but it was funny to see his father's reaction. Standing behind him, as he was friendly. Don't get me wrong, he was friendly, but yeah, he was.
I was just saying, we've had plenty of crossover over the years where people who are there playing games, just they're in the environment and they hear people talking about stuff. And, we've picked up a couple of, a handful of regulars over the years who became subscribers or even just, regular comic buyers just because they saw something they liked,
Yeah. Well, and word of mouth is one of the best ways, right? I mean, it's like if you find something you like, what are you going to do to your friends? You're going to tell them, dude, I found this. You got to check it out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way it goes.
And we see that just at the store level with all comics. It's every Coliseum location, even between my two stores, there's kind of a personality that the store takes on because of what the staff likes in comics. Because they're more often, more likely going to recommend those kind of things that they like. If they can. Well, I like this, and this customer I'm talking to, I'm kind of fishing for info about things they like. Okay, of the things I like, I think I'd recommend this to them, and so, that's that Rolodex of titles in your brain you like becomes part, just what you're talking about all the time. And like Invincible is another one of those that, I think at, the Fashion Square store at the time, we sold more there than all the other Coliseums because like 3 or 4 of us on staff loved it, and we just talked it up all the time. It just, it just naturally people will try what you like, and you're excited about it, and they get excited about it, and if they like it, they stick with it.
Well, and you just said that to me. That's one of the key words you just said. You get excited about it, and I think I think that's key when your customers can see that you're excited about something. Well, that's going to make them excited. It's like, wow, you're excited. You're this excited about it. So when I was in college, one of my other jobs I had is I worked at a record store. And one of the things I noticed at the record store was that this is back when we had records and cassettes, right? One of the things I noticed is that customers would come in and regular customers would come in and they would have a particular employee that they looked for.
Yep.
And, it's like, hey, I want to talk to Paula because she knows all about the hip hop stuff. I'm going to go to Roland because Roland knows about the metal stuff. Right. And I found that over time, that's what would happen is that, they would come in and say, hey, Roland, what's new and what's metal? And if I would say, this one just came in, we played it. They would buy it because I said so.
Yeah.
Because I said it was good. Now, not on the first, they would take some time to come in. We'd talk about music. I like this. You like this. We like the same things. And they would become, over time, they would trust my taste. And so they would start buying things. Do you find that the same thing happens in the comic shop?
1,000%. Yep. Everyone's got like their favorite person because it's like, and I always tell the staff, like, because I know some places and not comic stores necessarily, but some other businesses or whatever, like a electronic store or whatever, it's salespeople trying to sell you the thing and get their commission, whatever, right? They're there, it's a job. Here, a lot of us do it because we love it. The industry is not rich. We don't make them, we're not sailing around in yachts or anything. So it's like
Roberta says, I feel that.
Like your recommendation and your word are part of the trust that the customer puts in you and your store. So I always tell my staff, be honest. If someone's asking you, hey, what do you think of this? If you don't like it, you don't have to trash it, but you know what? It wasn't for me. I didn't like it because of X, Y, Z, whatever. Right. But the more successful recommendations you give somebody, they just gravitate to you and you become their go-to person,
Yeah. And that's nice when that happens. As a customer, that's nice to have, because you're like, I'm going to go to this person because I can trust them and they're going to recommend something good to me. Fruitbat says extroverts, so true. Then he said a little bit. He said, did Aaron mention what makes Silverline different, stand out from other comic companies, or what he feels makes Silverline distinct? Was that already discussed? Fruitbat's coming in a little bit late, but glad you joined us, Fruitbat. He talked a little bit already about delivery. Yeah.
Like the tabling you do, and being, you guys have been proven trustworthy. Like, like even though you haven't delivered on the last Kickstarter, you started a new one. That doesn't mean we know they're on the way. They're coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd say also like the fact that you guys are doing kind of, if you look at the independent shelf, there's actually there's not a lot of superhero books out there. So you guys almost have kind of a niche in that where there's not a lot of other, like, I don't want to say off-brand superheroes, but
I don't care if you call us an off-brand superhero. That's fine.
Original superheroes.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny that you say that, but one of the guys, and I won't call him by name, but or maybe I could. Pete, one of the guys who's doing some stuff for us. I talked to him a little bit, and he's the guy who did the Silverline team up for us with Champion and Miss Fury that Roberta colored. And I asked Pete at one point in time, I said, so what was it about, my pitch to you with Silverline that had you interested over some of these other companies? He goes, I love superheroes. I want to draw superheroes. He said, everybody else in the independent comic wanted me to draw science fiction. He goes, you asked me to draw superheroes.
There's really hardly any superhero books like on the indie shelf. There's other genres. There's fantasy. Well, there's a lot of established properties. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I guess you could consider them superheroes to some degree, but they're almost their own genre. It's that like like that after school cartoon. Like
right,
like the nostalgia books, you know what I mean? Like the established properties. But like there's plenty of horror and thriller and action, and like Supernatural is huge right now. Absolutely huge on the indie shelf. That's one of the trends we're seeing right now.
Wow.
But superhero stuff. I mean, I think like off the top of my head, Radiant Black from Image is the only one and Radiant Red now is the only one I can think of that's like kind of a superhero-y, romp.
I think this is just me looking at it. It seems like independent comics are a little bit of afraid to do superheroes.
Because you're competing directly with long established characters and tie-ins and things that people are seeing on streaming and TV and movies, and it's like I could see that could be intimidating of like, okay, well, what's going to make my hero stand out and be interesting to people? That can be tough. So one of the questions I asked you was about what would you tell independent comic makers to focus on? Is there anything that you see, and again, not calling anybody out, is there anything that you see that you would tell them, don't do this? And now you touched on a little bit of that. It's like, be on time. So it's like, don't be late. Can you think of anything that you would tell them, hey, I've seen this before, don't do this and don't do this kind of thing? Gosh, I don't know.
So I
think the biggest problem I've seen is people come in and their stuff isn't polished enough. And when I say that, it doesn't have to look like something Marvel and DC do.
Right.
But it's like, the kid who's like 19 and just, just in college or just straight out of high school. And, they're a really good artist for where they're at, but they don't have the right polish. It just looks rough,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things that, you probably heard the 10,000 hour thing, right? Is that you get to spend 10,000 hours. I've heard an artist say before, that's equivalent to like 1,000 pages. That sounds like an awful lot of pages to me. It's like, man, that's a lot of pages. But regardless of whether that's the number or not, the idea is still there. It's like, look, if you're an artist just now picking up the pencil, your first pages, your first comics are probably not going to be Marvel worthy, right? You gotta put in that time. You gotta put in those 10,000 hours, right?
Yeah.
And however many pages that equals up to be, you've got to put in some time to get there.
Yeah, there's so many artists you can point at and look at their early stuff and go, I don't know. Like, or even like someone who's like his early stuff, like Jim Lee. His early stuff was decent. You know, it was solid. You know, exciting. It worked. It had a very '90s vibe, right? But like now, you look at his stuff now. It's like, whoa! It's he's one of the best artists of our generation.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Opinion question for you.
Okay.
Words on covers or not?
Ooh, like word bubbles,
what's that?
Word bubbles?
Well, yeah, like dialogue balloons. You know, if you've got characters on the covers, do you put dialogue balloons or maybe a blurb on there?
I've never been a big fan of dialogue balloons on covers. It's definitely, if it fits the book. If the book leans campy, like a Deadpool or She-Hulk kind of character where there's a lot of inside baseball and, you know, voices and heads kind of stuff. Yeah, okay, that fits. Yeah, I don't know. Not a huge fan. Like, obviously the title. Yeah, like I'm not opposed to, like, I've always liked it when it's like, you know, especially like a mini series where it says 1 of 4 or 6 or whatever. Like, that's the kind of stuff I don't mind, as long as it's not egregious. Like, it's whatever. Do I enjoy the book? Yes or no? That's what matters the most.
Yeah. One of our conversations here has been about covers and how we don't see text on covers anymore.
No, it is pretty rare.
It's very rare. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but it's very rare. And now I'm not looking for camp, right? Because that's as you mentioned, Deadpool, and that's a completely different level.
Oh yeah.
But you know, there are sometimes you look at a cover and it's like, okay, that's a nice image, but if there was a balloon coming from the character that said, you know, this thing, this, that, you're like, oh, that's what that's about. You know, Fruit Bat says. Context. It depends on context.
Yeah.
And I think that's so do you think it dialogue on or I won't say dialogue because it could be blurbs hurts or helps sales?
Oh geez. I mean, you don't see
it. Do you think it affects
sales? I don't know if there's a metric that I could like pin on that. I do appreciate when a company or writer, editor, whatever, but you open and that first like inside page has a recap of what's been happening. Like, oh yeah, that's really good. I wish more books would do that.
Because right now, you're talking about like on the inside front cover.
Yeah, well, not even first page, like front of the first page. They're Marvel's pretty big on that, especially in their Star Wars books. There's like a crawl at the beginning of every book on the first page, kind of explaining where you're at or whatever. But like, one of the biggest problems for a random person coming in to comics for the first time, or someone who's getting back into it, is like, well, where do I start? That is the biggest question. It's like, well, is there any number ones I could recommend based on what their interests seem to be?
And number ones have to be the ones that usually cost more.
Yeah, I mean, especially with like Marvel and DC's, especially Marvel these days. They're very egregious with that, unfortunately. But like, you know, there tends to be a lot more indie series launches, you know, that you could point out as like, well, you could try this. And but I say, like, if you could give this 100 issue arc you're planning, and you're on issue 42 or something, you know, which is rare for indie books these days.
Yes,
but
it
like,
is,
as an example, like, who's going to pick up that book for the first time? What ends are you giving them to get into it? Well, I'd like to see more recaps in more books. If it's going to be more than like a mini series, I think you need a recap.
That's a
great paragraph at the beginning of every issue.
Yeah. See, and this is a great suggestion for you indie comic makers. If you're out there and you're planning on making, you know, because I often hear that, I've got this 30 issue series planned, you know, and I'm like, okay. So that's a great bit of advice. Very cool. I have I have kept you to your hour here.
You're going to keep
Yeah.
going. We can keep going a little bit.
Okay, all
We're
right.
having a good
That's
time.
great.
So Roberta, I've hogged all the questions. Do you have any questions?
Well, outside of blurbs on the cover, I guess I do have a question of, do you think that when a character is completely unknown, there's any sort of suggestion as to where I guess I'm trying to figure out if it's the visual on the cover that really gets people's attention only, you know?
The cover is going to be there. Okay, what's going to get them to pick it up off the stands?
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
they read it, how do they feel about it? You know,
Yeah, because that's after the fact. If we get it in their hands, that's, at least up to taste. But
yeah,
I'm trying to
that's
see,
part of
like,
like even like training with staff. It's like when you're recommending a book or talking to someone, like, oh, pull that trade off the shelf and put it in their hand, and they've got that sense of ownership. You know, of like, ooh, this is kind of mine now. And I don't know. There's been studies done, but there's whatever percent chance increase that they're going to buy it. So,
Wow.
but again, that's why we have to take that responsibility seriously of recommending good stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because if you recommend something bad, they will remember it. It's like, I bought that and it was a piece of crap. Well, I'm not going to listen to those guys again.
I mean, I hope that answered the question anyway.
Yeah. Well, just a story. It's such an arbitrary thing that happens, with fans.
Yeah, different people into different things, and what's going to catch that person's eye on that cover?
Yeah.
Is it the colors? Is it the way the person looks? Is it like what the story appears to be about? Was it just a beautiful background or the topic? Yeah, you never know what's gonna. If you can hit them on all 5 or 6 different data points on what's on that cover of what they're looking for coincidentally, then that's going to increase their chance of taking a look.
Yeah. Well,
could it be creative names too? Just more?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You got to obviously people have to get established, and like names like Cullen Bunn, like guys like Kieran Gillen right now, Tom King to some degree, James Tynion, like a couple of years. Some of these guys a couple of years ago, not all of them obviously, but like we're starting to get series out that more people were picking up, and now these guys are very hot writers, and just as an example of like they're getting a lot more work, they're publishing a lot more of their owner or creator owned stuff, and they're some of the guys who people like, they put a book out, it's like, okay, we know X number of people are probably going to at least try this, number one.
Because it has the name recognition there. Yeah. Do you find along those same lines that when you have the recognizable names, the publisher matters to your customers?
A little bit, I'd say, actually. Yeah. Sometimes we've seen.
So if Cullen Bunn,
I won't name anybody, but like I saw one recently where it's like, this person was a bigger name and they're with a different company, but they put this kind of creator-owned thing out that just people didn't grab onto. You know?
Yeah.
So the content did matter in that case.
Yeah, because obviously one of the things that I will sometimes hear from independent creators is that I want to go work for Marvel and DC, not because I like Marvel and DC, but I want to go work for Marvel and DC in order to make a name for myself. That way, when I leave Marvel and DC, I can go do my own thing.
It's almost it's become that way. It used to be where it's like people. At least it seems this way, throughout the 90s and early 2000s, like, just get your work into anything you can, publish with whatever indie person, and then, get recognized or get a portfolio together, and then go talk to DC and Marvel at the conventions and get on their list of people to talk to. And, there was almost like a farm system this way. Now I feel it's gone the opposite way. It's like Marvel and DC get these people and they become, popular or successful to whatever degree. And they've got their own ideas too. They're creative. They're very creative people, and they've got their stuff that they want to do that they can't do with Marvel and DC.
Right.
So it's kind of become this reverse farm system where they go back into the indie publishing and put their own stuff out and are very successful with it for the most part, it seems.
Yeah, yeah, and I kind of feel that way as well. I feel that there's a little bit of that's the reason we see a little bit, and I don't want to get too deep there, but I think that's the reason we see a little bit of change in the um, kind of what we're seeing from Marvel and DC, because I think some of the creators get there and they're like, well, I've created this thing, but I don't want to give it to Marvel and DC
Yeah,
because
that
if I create it with, if I'm writing Spider-Man and I create this thing in Spider-Man, then they own it, and I want to go do it in my own book,
yeah, that's definitely become an issue. I've read plenty of articles now over the years and heard stuff from people where it's like, they came up with this side character for
Yeah,
Spider-Man or Batman or whoever who's of some villain or whatever, some new kind
whatever.
of character. And, a couple years later, that character blows up, gets a miniseries or whatever, or
Right.
that person doesn't necessarily get a cut of that. And that has become, a point of contention in the industry. I don't know what the contracts are these days and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, even some of the old school guys, that's why like things like the Hero Initiative came to be. It's because like a lot of these guys didn't get, or art creators. I say guys, I apologize. Guys is a general term in my world. Like, so the people who are creative,
it just means people. In my
it just means
opinion.
people.
I think people
guys.
always get
you guys. How you guys? Yeah.
But the people, the creators, like you hear, plenty of heartbreak stories about someone who got ill or fell on hard times, and they got paid like whatever page rate, and that was it. There was no any kind of security net or anything there for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately, that's for the work for hire stuff. That's still the case. They should have perpetual royalties, so that anytime that work is reprinted, they get money. But that doesn't give them any kind of ownership. It's just of that work. So I know that when we were at Marvel in the 90s, Marvel didn't have it, but I think they've since instigated. I think, don't hold me to this, but DC had like called a participation contract, in which if you created a character, you got participation royalties. So let's just say Marv Wolfman for Teen Titans, right? The characters that Marv and George created for Teen Titans, when they went on to the cartoons and the movies and the toys, they got a piece of that. It wasn't a large piece, but it was a participation for them because they had created it. So that was a really good thing. And this is something that Malibu, when Roberta and I were at Malibu, this is something that Malibu worked hard to duplicate. So one of the things that Malibu had was the participation agreements for our creators.
That's good. Yeah, I don't know how it all works. I don't know. It's obviously a lot of inside basebul, but you hear things and you hear different mixed things from each company. People who've worked for each company, and some of it even seems to depend on your kind of stature within the industry.
And it's kind of gotten back to me whether this is accurate or not. I don't know, but it's like, if you ask, they will give it. If you don't ask, they will ignore it.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it goes back to that extrovert introvert kind of idea, right? It's like, if you're an introvert, so I'm just gonna do my work and submit it in. Well, then you might not get it. But if you're the extrovert, this is, hey, I did this, I need this. Well, then you might get it.
That's something I've learned about leases, is that when you're presented by the leasing company with the lease, like, you can ask for just about anything. They're not going to agree to it all, but some of the stuff they will give you. So just as far as like, who's responsible for what repairs and stuff like that.
Well, if you don't ask, you won't get it all, will you?
Yep.
Yeah. Stephen Brown has a question here. He goes, I'm not sure if this was asked. If so, please ignore. But he says, how can an indie creator get their comic looked at by a retailer? So I'm going to interpret this a little more to assume Stephen means not how can you get it looked at, but how do you get it into a store? So
okay, I was going to say, I'm ignoring this question. We talked about this. No, how do you physically get it into the store?
Yes. Right? So let's assume that they're not in Diamond, right? How does an independent creator get their comic into your hands and into your store?
walk into a store and he has to talk to the manager. You know, like, obviously don't recommend to talk to the manager. You know, you don't want to make him think it's a negative situation, but no, talk to go inside. Like, hey, I'm a local creator. I've got a book. I've got some sample pages here, or I've got my sample book. Can I talk to the manager and show it to him and see if you guys would be interested in carrying it? And then as far as I have found that doing things on like a commission basis is kind of a hassle.
Yeah.
Because like I talked about near the top of the show, we're managing dozens of different accounts. It's just one more thing to keep track of.
Yeah.
That's why with you guys, we've all just backed the Kickstarter, or
Yep.
a lot of the local creators just like, okay, what are we selling them for? You're good with Keystone, which is 50%, so you're selling it for $5. We're buying it for $2.50 and throwing it on the stands. I just prefer to just straight out buy. Usually with some people, it's like, tell you what, I'll buy 2-3 copies, maybe 5 copies. We'll put it on the shelf. We'll highlight as a local creator, see how it sells. If it sells well enough, we'll reorder from you as needed, that kind of thing. So unfortunately it's very small ball in that, if it's someone we don't know.
Yeah.
Because it's like we're taking a risk on them. We
Absolutely.
had I don't know if you know him, but Adam Smith had a new graphic novel come out. We had him in last week. He sold a handful at his table, and we bought 2 copies from him to throw on the shelf with the local creator stuff. And if we sell more, we'll hit him up and maybe get 2 or 3 more. It's a little small ball, and unfortunately for both sides. But if you can hit up enough stores and make enough contacts and get that kind of ecosystem going, at least you've got that to supplement, and if you can do an appearance in each store, like we also talked about that, you are your best advocate for your stuff. If I don't know if you know this, but I'm a creator in my own way as well. I've got a board game that I've had published.
No way. Cool.
You didn't know
I
that?
did not know that.
Yeah. What I found is if you just set it on the shelf, don't tell anybody, it'll get some looks every now and then. But if we've made displays in the stores of, hey, here's a stack of these books, and we put a sticker on it that says local creator. Oh, what's that? People want to support local creators.
They absolutely do.
That's cool.
It was weird when I've had a couple people ask me to sign it. I'm like, why? I don't want to do that. I'm just some dude.
That's great though.
But when you're there and you can talk it up, where the staff knows, this is the owner's game. He made this. Oh, really? And they'll take an extra look. Just like we've got the shelf of all the. I don't know if you saw, we posted on our Facebook page for the Orlando store last week, but it was hey, here's our 2 shelves. Here's all the local comic creators. Here's all the local board game creators. There's actually Orlando's kind of a hotbed of board gaming as well for the creative side.
Wow. Yeah, we shared the heck out of that picture. Yeah.
Awesome.
So now that's locally, all right. But what if somebody, let's say there's somebody up in Pennsylvania, and they've got a comic that they're interested in. What would the process be for something like that? I mean, obviously that's not as easy because they can't walk in and talk to you. And
I mean, I'll be honest, we do get packages in the mail sometimes. We got one last week at the stores of hey, here's this kind of ash can of our indie book. If you want to put it out and give it away for free. This one in particular, I think it said they were going to be listed with Diamond. But then, there's a challenge of getting it in Diamond. I only know a little bit of the process, but there's a lot of things they require from you, and they take a big cut. And, as far as getting, I don't know what else to tell you there, honestly. I just know from my perspective of how we've handled it. But if you're in a smaller market and there's just one local store, I don't know. I mean, you table at conventions. I know people have another guy who published a game locally. He had a lot of luck actually going to some flea markets and stuff like that. Not flea markets, I'm sorry, farmers markets.
Really?
Some weekend farmers markets, downtown Orlando, and was able to sell, 10, 20 copies anytime he went, just because, I'm the creator and I made this thing and people want to support that,
Yeah. I do think it's cool that people like to support local creators, local kid done good kind of thing. That's very cool. So, all right. So let's kind of stick with this idea that if someone is not local to Orlando to you.
Mhm.
Can they reach out to, let's stick with Pennsylvania. So can this Pennsylvania creator reach out to you and say, hey, I am going to be in Diamond. Can I, can they
Well,
put you on a mailing list, or would you
they
want
do
to
it
see?
anyway.
Oh, they do it. See,
Yeah, they just send us stuff or send us. It's pretty
I
common to
would
get
do something about.
postcards, promoting their stuff to us. I'll give them a glance. It's hard
Yeah.
though, especially if you don't have a book to look at. You don't
Yeah.
have that person to stand that you're standing there talking to.
Right.
It's I will say it's challenging.
Yeah.
Especially like, we're a store that, considers that stuff. I don't know what your experience is, but I get the impression that a lot of stores don't even consider it.
You are absolutely correct. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of stores that if you're not in the Diamond catalog, you don't matter. I mean, I'm talking about comic books, it's like, well, we only order our comics from the catalog, I have had retailers, when I tell them, oh, this is some of my history, they're like, oh yeah, I used to love the Malibu stuff, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, well, if you want me to order your book, get in the catalog. I'm like, okay, well,
yeah, it's tough, and I completely understand that point of view. The reason I started a local creator shelf, and I was visiting Chicago many years ago, visiting my sister up there. Or is that what we were up there? Yeah, I think that's what we were there for. And just anytime I'm out of town, I try and hit up all the local stores I can just to see. I'm always fishing for ideas, like what are they doing that I like? What are they doing that I not like? That I don't like? And one of them had a whole like bookcase set up with like, hey, here's all local Chicago people. I was like,
yeah,
oh, that's really neat. That's cool.
Yeah.
And it kind of gave me the idea. And over the years, we've met more creators, and you guys especially. Like, you guys put out a lot of stuff, and you put it out consistently, and it helps keep that shelf. You guys are the majority of that shelf, to be honest. But like,
yeah, we noted that was one of the things that that gave us all big smiles.
Yeah,
like, hey, look, those are all Silverline books on this one side right here.
Yeah, I mean, we've worked with a ton of other local folks over the years. Actually, off the top of my head, I'm just realizing there's a couple of books that need to be on there. Do we even have them in stock? I think he might be sold out now. Anyway, that's not a whole other thing.
Well, so do you find a lot of local creators come up and talk to you, or is it more common or less common?
It's not uncommon,
Okay.
but it's not constant or anything like that. I mean, especially because on that side of town, we're near Full Sail. There's a lot of creative. I mean, all about Full Sail. There's a lot of creative people that go there, and it's not always Full Sail people, but sometimes they have a connection to it at least, or something. But it's such a mixed bag though, because sometimes, like, gosh, I had a guy after we moved into the new spot last year in the Orlando store. A guy came in and was pitching me this whole thing. It's like, oh, that sounds really cool. It's like, okay, I'll have it in a month. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, bring me some copies. We'll
come back in a month. Yeah,
come back in a month. Never saw him ever again.
Really?
Yeah, I must have. Gosh, he must have talked my ear off for like an hour about this book, and I was like, yeah, we'll buy this many copies and this and that, and never heard from him ever again. Or the guys that again, not naming names, but it's like, hey, here's our number one, and then okay, 9 months later, here's our number two. It's like, okay, 9 months later, here's our number three. It's like, okay, well, and that's the thing, like with indie creators, a lot of people have a side gig, or these guys, again, guys, general term, like people are trying to break into the industry or just get started, or like, I had an idea and I wanted to get it down, and I'm doing this thing for the first time, and it is their first foray into it, and they're learning it, but they're stumbling hard along the way. So
comics is the side gig.
Yeah, biggest problem is lack of consistency.
Yeah. So this is going to be a tough question. Actually, let's see. There's a couple. What does Fruit Bat says? I helped a guy make a board game once. Did all the art design. It was a process.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah. Kudos to you for Aaron for producing.
Well, thank you. I just designed it. I didn't do any of the art though. So.
So this is a tough question. Okay, and again, not fishing for names. Not it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody comes in and brings you product. What makes you say no? A local person comes up to you and says, "Hey, here's my comic book. I made this."
I won't use a comic example. I'll use a different example. We had some people,
because I'm not trying to point fingers at all. I'm trying to, in generalities, what makes you say no?
We have plenty of local people that bring in other stuff that's not comics. And we've had varying degrees of success, but You know, it comes down to, hey, you know, even the ones that are successful, hey, we'd like to restock. Well, we're a little busy. We're back. We'll get back to you in a month. A month later, hey, can you? Well, the machine broke, or like, okay, like, but yeah, this some people brought in like, hey, we're doing these, you know, D&D themed T-shirts. Like, oh, okay, cool, let's take a look. And it was like the most generic looking, like font saying like Rogue.
Oh, really?
Oh,
There's not even any art
just boring.
or style, and they were kind of offended that we weren't interested. Like, what? Like, you know, you got to have a viable product.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, it needs a little. You need a little bit of polish to it.
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes from where I sit is that sometimes comic book makers forget that it's a business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we love doing this. We love making the comics. You know, it's fun. But I think sometimes comic book makers forget that in the end, it is a business.
Yeah.
And
well,
unless
it's your baby, you know, it's the thing you've been working on. And then, but that's being compared to these 2,000 line items from Diamond, you know,
right.
as far as like fighting for shelf space.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because I think that's the thing that you know, creators think about all the time is that I want to talk to this retailer, but I don't want them to tell me no. So let me ask kind of let me ask another one that's tough. So I see a lot of content on Kickstarter that is extremely mature.
Yes.
And you know, I don't listen. I'm very much a First Amendment guy. I believe, you know, I'm support that. But you've heard me say, you know, Silverline, we're PG-13. I think I like the idea of the Marvel movies. Right? Is that people? It's for a wide audience, and so, you know, some of our books push it a little more than others do. You know, depends on content. Horror always tends to push the lines a little bit. You know, superheroes almost, for us anyway, almost never. But when I see that, I'm like, you know, I'm not, me personally, I'm not interested in that. Is that something that you have to consider as a retailer when you see?
To some degree, yes. There's not a lot of, there's some stuff that comes through the Diamond catalog that's, you know, extreme or pornographic in nature.
Right.
Some NC-17 or very hard R+ kind of thing.
Right.
You know, we don't, if there's something obscene on the cover, we generally don't put it on the shelf.
Yeah.
There's been instances of a handful of like variant covers from some of the companies, like if you where it's like it comes in, it's like, whoa, what the? Because it's an unrevealed cover, and then it shows up. It's like, what is this? So it's like, you know, even like if you look back at like Crossed from Avatar Press,
right?
Like they did, you know, it was called the torture cover. You
oh
know,
my
and
goodness!
It's just entrails and blood and all kinds of stuff, and like, you know, that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, someone ordered it, great, that will put it in their box, that's fine. But like, you know, that person, you know, delinquented out or quit their sub, but we had books on order for them, and those books show up. What do you do with it? Well, sometimes we would like cut like a board down and put it in a, you know, load it in a bag, so it's like you can just see the title or something, you know.
But, yeah.
That's one way to do it. But yeah, generally, if a book is, you know, gosh, I'm trying to think of, there's like stuff like Cave Woman and
so I'm
like
thinking
we generally don't bother with it, you know, unless it's something a lot of people are ordering.
Yeah. So I don't know if you remember, man. Listen, David Quinn, Tim Vigil. I like both of those guys a lot. I worked with David Quinn back in the Malibu days. He wrote some stuff for me. Vigil did a cover for me. But have you ever seen Faust?
Yes, actually.
see, David Quinn and Tim Vigil are the ones that did that, and that's the kind of thing. It's like, you know what? It's like Vigil is a super talented artist, and Quinn is a good guy and a good writer. But Yeah, how do you put that on the shelf? Well, of
Yeah,
course,
there
I
is a
think
market for that. I mean, we do
yeah,
carry, like, going back to Crossed, we carry the Cross trades in the Orlando store, and we sell them on occasion. But
yeah.
that's different than having it on the featured, on the new book wall.
Yeah,
But yeah, some of that, it doesn't sell crazy often, but it sells
right.
occasionally. And when
Yeah,
those kind of customers, when they buy them, they buy multiples.
yeah,
There's a market for it. It's not a huge market, but there's a market for that kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I see a bunch of that stuff on Kickstarters, and I'm like,
That might be a better venue for it, because the
yeah.
people that want to read that, they're going to seek it out, and you're going to hit more of that market on like a Kickstarter or something like that, as opposed to just
Well,
shotgunning and hoping stores buy it, I guess.
between me and you, I've always thought it was kind of the idea of the brown paper bag on
Yeah.
Kickstarter.
Oh
You
yeah.
you
Very
can
much
you
so.
can get that right off of a Kickstarter, and it comes in a wrapped in a box, and
Hmm.
no one has to know what you got.
Yeah.
Right.
There's I think
Yeah.
is it Boom or is it Image? I always forget who's publishing, but Faithless. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I've
Very
Mm-mm.
heard the title.
sexual, mature book, right? But
Yeah.
they do an X-rated variant cover, but they
Yeah.
actually do they have like a wrap, like a not a cardboard, but like a thick cardstock wraparound, and they polybag it.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yes. So they do it for you, and not to.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
yeah, people, I mean, they don't reveal the cover ahead of time, and people, that series in particular, we sell pretty well on that secondary cover, even though people don't know what it looks like.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's interesting. Stephen Brown said, "I think that's Image."
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Well, all right. Well, we have come to the our clock has run its time. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you're like, man,
Mhm.
Roland, why didn't you ask me this? I wanted to say this about independent comics, and you didn't ask me the question.
Oh,
So
I don't know. I love the variety that's out there now with independent comics. Like I said, there's a little something for everybody, and there's always the trends that go one direction or another. And right now, it's Supernatural, which isn't necessarily my bag, but there's always
yeah,
something out there to read. Yeah, one of my problems is it's a very crowded market. Like I said, we
yeah,
don't even carry everything. It's not possible for a store to carry everything. It's just not.
no,
So I feel like I'm always kind of behind behind the times a little bit on some of the titles that come out, and something hits big. It's like, oh, should have read that. Oops. Well, in trades. Oh, well, volume 2 is out of print. Great. I can't read the whole thing now.
so I imagine you rely pretty heavily on your managers and your staff.
Oh yeah, because like we talked about, everyone's got kind of different taste in different things, and part of them, they also rely on the customers too, and
Yeah,
not just what what us and our staff are telling the customers of, well, here's what we like and here's what you should read. Like, we hear plenty of it's water cooler talk behind the
yeah,
counter half the day.
yeah,
It's people telling us what they're reading and what they like, and it's a conversation. It's not just customer and employee. Like, we develop relationships with people, just
yeah,
like giving those positive recommendations to each other, in a
yeah,
way.
yeah. Well, I know that Stephen Brown says, I know as soon as this is over, questions are going to be popping into my head.
Oh, well. But yeah, no, I love talking shop on comics, and
Yeah.
it's a, even, we just talked a little bit about indie stuff, but it's such a huge diverse industry,
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I think one of the things you touched on is, I think one of the things we have to remind ourselves frequently is that it's a crowded industry.
Mm-hmm.
And while, we got a gang of us here at Silverline Making Comics, we have to remember that it's a crowded industry.
Yeah.
And the guys in the trenches like you are having to make those orders, and look through those 2,000 line items, and it's not easy. And so, when I hear people getting mad at retailers, and I'm like, stop getting mad at the retailer. It's not it's on you to stand above. It's on you to reach out to them, and it's on you to make the retailer want you.
100%. Like, don't look in the catalog and go, okay, I'll pick that up when it comes out. tell your local comic shop, I want to order that book for my subscription, and they will get it for you most of the time.
Yeah.
If they're a good store, they will get it for you, especially if you pre-order it.
Yeah.
Some people, it's like, the book, title comes out, and maybe one person pre-ordered it, so it's like, oh, okay, well, we'll go low on it. Maybe we'll get 5-10 copies, or it looks kind of like this book, we'll order it in similar numbers to that, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, it comes out, and the first 10 people, they buy it off the shelf, and we're sold out. It's out of print, and because it got hot, it's like, well, no one pre-ordered it. Like, if you're excited about a book that you want to read, like, pre-order it. Tell your store you want to read that book.
I look forward to the day that I'm getting emails from Aaron every other week. Says, Roland, we need more copies of this book. Roland, we need more copies of this book. Well, Aaron, I know I speak for the entire Silverline crew. We absolutely appreciate you supporting us so much. And I know you probably don't see our streams that often, but we always at the beginning and always at the end of the stream, we've even got the little image that pops up. We shout out.
I did see that today. Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we absolutely always tell people, Coliseum of Comics, in Orlando, go get them, tell them we sent you, go there. So we absolutely appreciate you supporting Silverline, and of course, all the other independent comics you do. Yeah. We love coming there. We love coming and hanging out at the shop and talking to folks. Last time it was for the rejects. I think it was me and Tommy and Haley, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
sounds right. Yep.
Yeah. So we had a lot of fun. Roberta, anything?
No, other than thank you.
What have we been watching?
A lot of good advice.
What have we been watching you color, Roberta?
So this is, let me show the page. This is Cat and Mouse number 4, and just takes a while to get through the explosion, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've been seeing all kinds of shades of red going through on the right there.
Yeah.
A lot of color. Yeah.
Cat and Mouse number 4.
Yeah, that's a book I'm working on, and we're. Yeah, we have a lot going on with Cat and Mouse.
Yes, and once again, let's see here. I can do this here. Once again, pop on over to our Kickstarter. Let's see, how can I do this? And give it a look. 3 comics this time. It's the first time we've ever done 3. So there's 3 comics. We have Beyond. It's all they're all science fiction, fantasy based. Beyond the Stars by Ron Fourier, Andrea Bormida, and Michael W. Belcher. We have Obsoletes by Wes Loker, Aaron Humphreys, Jose Fuentes, and Haley Martin. And then Cray, of course, by me. And Stephen Butler did the pencils. And Ken Branch did the inks, and it's colored by Jeremy Kahn. So 3 books is our first time to ever do 3 in 1, but you've heard us talking about it. It's because we are just making comics, and we're running out of months, and so we have to do 3 in 1 month. And what we like to do here, Aaron, let me go back to this. We like to end our stream. Oh, I got to go through. So thanks to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. Make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con in September. If you like comic books, Daytona Beach Comic Con is the place to be. Silverline will be there in force. Obviously, if you're in Orlando area and you need your Silverline comics, which you do, then you need to stop by Coliseum of Comics on East Colonial in Orlando and in Claremont, and ask them to point you to the Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. You need to tell them we sent you so they know that you're listening to us and you're going to their store because we're telling you to go there. And shout out again to Kablam. I thought I had a book right here. Here we go. Shout out to Kablam. Does such an awesome job on our printing. If you need your comic printed, look no further than Kablam. We're doing a fantastic job. And don't forget, we've got a Tuesday stream. I don't know what the Tuesday group is going to talk about, but be back here Tuesday, 11 p.m. for those of us on the East Coast. This 8 o'clock out there on the West. And then the Whammers will be here Wednesday at 8 o'clock. And we will be here again next week at 8 p.m. Roberta, tell people where they can find you on the interwebs.
Oh, you can find me Facebook and Instagram under Roby Conroy. So look there.
Excellent. Aaron, if people are looking for Coliseum of Comics, where can they find Coliseum of Comics on the interwebs?
Coliseumofcomics.com for the main page, and that'll direct you to the Facebooks. Like every store has their own Facebook. We try and customize them a little bit. There is a Twitter account. I don't know if it's very active, but they are the Instagram account for the main Coliseum is very active.
Okay.
Posts, a lot of good pictures, staff recommendations, cool statue arrivals, new releases in general, upcoming events. There's always something going on.
Cool. Very cool. I know I think I tried to tag you the other day on Twitter and I couldn't, it wasn't coming up. But
Coliseum or me?
Yeah, Coliseum.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It might be under just Coliseum of Comic for some reason.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know. I remember that was an issue a couple years ago, but I don't
run out of letters. Well, on I think on Instagram, one of those, we're Silverline Comic, no S.
Yep.
Because we ran out of letters.
Yeah, that could have been the problem. I don't know. I don't run that one.
Yeah. All right. And so I'm Roland Man. You can find me on all the social media places. Look for Roland Man or Man Roland on Twitter. And until next time, we like to say, remember to make mine Silverline. All right. Good night, everyone. Where's my closing bumper here? Absolutely. Thank you so much, Aaron.
Bye-bye.
We appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Greg Horn. Make mine Silverline.